Hi, ladies. Oh my gosh, I'm back. Oh, time is different this week. It's been, I forgot what day it was. But I'm so glad to be back. Had a wonderful time at Mina's Fire and Flow Intensive in Florida this weekend. So amazing. That was just, thank you, Mina. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who came. It was just such a wonderful sisterhood of women from a million different backgrounds. So cool. Hi, Ariba. So, yeah, I got to talk to a lot of single ladies about what they're going through with dating and hear their stories. And they're, in the intensive. And wow, what an amazing opportunity. And so we got to talk a little bit about my program, Find Your King and Get the Ring, and with those ladies. So I'm so excited to be able to help single women manifest the marriages of their dreams. So yes, that's totally my passion. Again, I'm Leila Thomasone, and I'm one of Mina's teacher trainees, sort of for the dating aspect, going from single to taken and hitched up with your queen, your king. So, so Mina did a wonderful job answering everyone's questions in the intensive, and we talked so much about relationships, and it brought up some things. For me, being married, I need this information just as much as the single ladies too. But I noticed, so there's kind of a theme of like when you talk to women, especially if you're not used to like multi-rotational dating of several suitors at once, I feel like this is a particular sticking point, is how do you assert like what you want, telling him that you want to be married, telling him you want to have children, just letting him know this is my value, this is my standards. And we hear, hopefully you've heard, that raising your standards is actually how going to raise your value in a man's eyes. But sometimes that's easier said than done, especially if you've kind of like hitched up to one guy and you're afraid of losing him. And so it seems like if you assert some standard, like, I want to be married before we live together, or before we have sex, or I want to be engaged before we have sex, or before we live together, that kind of thing, that you're just afraid he's gonna go bye-bye, right? So I wanted to talk about that. And, like I said, for me being married, I have some of the same issues, like, just kind of laying down the law and being that sassy diva that says, this is the kind of treatment that I signed up for, that I'm in for. I'm all in for being treated like a princess, and not so much with nitpicking or whatever it is that is going on. So thank you for joining me for this discussion, and please jump in with any questions you have about this topic. So first of all, like I said, raising your standards actually raises your value in a man's eyes. And let me tell you why. This is because he derives self-esteem from being with a high-value woman. Did you know that? His self-esteem is very, very, very much tied up into who's this lady on his arm. You've heard the term trophy wife. This is how men express status among other men, is look at this wonderful trophy this prize I was able to win. My husband would refer to me as his prize when we first met. Maybe sometimes currently too. And the reason he feels like you're a prize is because he's had to work to win you over. So let's assume that you're not yet married, but getting there, or wherever you are really in the status of the relationship. But he should have to work to earn his place in your life. And that's something that Mina talks about a lot, is he's the one auditioning, not you. Hi, Elenique. Oh, hi. It's so great to see you. So he needs to be the one auditioning to be in your life, because that's what makes you high value in his eyes, in his mind. If he has to work to make you happy and to win you over. And you might be thinking, if you're married, that that's confusing. He already won you over, right? But he needs to constantly be winning you over, or his self-esteem is going to start plummeting. If he doesn't have to work to keep winning you, he will feel like he doesn't have that prize, you know. So that can tend to happen a lot as marriages progress. And you can, so if you're dating, you know, you definitely need to keep multi-dating and rotational dating, because that's going to keep him having to compete, and that's going to reassure you that you will have a man at the end of this process, and instead of just latching onto one and then you have to do whatever he wants in order to keep him. So that's a mental mindset that is going to sabotage your relationship and your goal of being married and having the marriage and the family life that you dream of. So how do you prevent that? First of all, keep rotational dating. But if you are in a committed relationship already, or you're married already, how do you let go of that fear that he's going to walk away from you? So one way is, like I said, understanding that the higher your standards are, the higher his self-esteem will be. And the way he feels about himself when he's with you is so important. That's really why he wants to be with you, is because he feels good about himself with you. And so he needs you to have high standards. He needs you to make him audition for that place in your life, even after you're committed and married. So if there's something that you're scared of bringing to him, like the need for a ring or a marriage, or I'm trying to think of another example. And please, ladies, anyone who's watching, if you want to jump in, what's some standard that's like hard for you to sort of lay down for your man and insist on, even though it's something you know you want, but you're afraid that you would lose him if you asserted that standard. I'm trying to think what mine was with my husband. Currently, it was just a difficulty saying no to him about like little criticisms he had, or like he wanted me to do something that I felt like is overextending to me, things like that I needed to have boundaries around. And just, even though I don't think he's going to leave, but I just feel like bad that I'm saying no. And so that mindset that I need to get over, kind of the same thing, that you have to understand that his self-esteem and self-worth, and which is the whole reason that he's with you, is connected to how high your standards are. So if you want to keep them, you need to assert those boundaries and standards. And I don't mean be demanding. I don't mean telling him what to do. Not at all. Not at all. So what would that look like? So let's say that you are, that he asks you to move in with him, and you really want to move in with him, but you're afraid you're going to lose him. So how do you let go of that fear? First of all, like I said, knowing that that's going to raise your value in his eyes. Even if he doesn't like it, he's not going to want to have to do the work. But at the same time, he does long-term need that. We don't always want to do what's good for us. We want to do what's easy, right? But in the long run, we're glad that we did that hard thing. Same thing with men. So he might be upset initially, but again, that's going to raise your value in his eyes, which raises his self-esteem. So that's like the positive end of how to let go of that fear. The positive incentive is this will improve our relationship. This will improve his happiness. This will improve his vision of me if you raise your standards, if you assert those boundaries. The negative on the other side is that if he did walk away, aren't you glad to know that sooner than later? Because like, what if you're pregnant with babies and that's when he decides that it's too hard to do what you need to keep, what needs to happen in your life, the hard work that he's not willing to do. Wouldn't you rather find out before this dire situation that he's not willing to live up to your desires? And why waste your time? Right? So it's like asserting your standards and boundaries are going to be your, it's going to be your reassurance that he's the right man for you, that he's going to be with you even when times are tough and a lot is asked of him. So is any of this helping? What's coming up for you ladies as you're hearing these things? Is this resonating with any single or married women? Tell me what you're thinking. I hope this is making sense. But if you don't have any questions or comments, that's okay too. I did want to tell you and let you know that if any of this does make sense to you and you would like to talk more about it, I always give a free consultation initially before working with anyone. So I'll drop the link here in the comments. It's just a simple little link to my schedule, and you can schedule a 30-minute consultation. Ariba says, I think it's tough to hold up boundaries with a man in the initial stages of dating when I know he has options. Okay, great. Yeah, thank you for that. So are you saying that, so you're saying it's tough to hold them up because he has options, but don't you have options too? Like that's why you keep looking until he steps up, right? Because you don't know that he's the one until he steps up and auditions and wins you over, earns your trust. Elenique says, I think this is true for relationships with everyone in our lives. Yes, thank you. Yes, for friendships, for family members. The fear of, not the fear, but the option of ending the relationship really does bring a peace and calm to the relationship, doesn't it? The possibility and the willingness to actually step away from a relationship allows you to be positive, allows you to be happy and bond over your shared values with that person, right? Because if you are okay with them in or out of your life, then there's no need to fight. There's no need to struggle and have conflict. Does that make sense? This is something that, hi Ro, good to see you. This is something that I've had to really come to terms with. I actually have worked with family members for quite a few years, and in doing business, it really uncovered a lot of these relationship patterns and conceptions and just where people are coming from in how they conduct their relationships, even if it's like a business relationship. So I work for my father, and he never fires anyone. He never fires anyone, and he's proud of it. But if you learn about business, you find out that firing people is actually a really, really, really important skill, because you can't predict the future of everything when you first interview employees. You don't know for sure that they're going to work out. You're taking a gamble, you're taking a risk, and you need to do that. That's critical for the health of the business, that you hire people. You have to make a decision, you have to take a risk. But if it doesn't work out, you need to cut them loose, right? So That's where the skill as a manager comes in. Not knowing who to hire, but knowing who to fire. Same thing with dating, right? So at the early stages, like Ariba was saying, at the early stages, that's when you want to have your filter on, let them go quickly. Always give them a chance, always accept the dates. And see what happens, but don't be afraid to let them deselect, as Mina says. Let them deselect out of your life by revealing their true colors and their true nature. If you're always protecting and coddling and preventing conflict, preventing, you know, yourself from you know, just asserting your own preferences and desires and intentions and values into the relationship, you're not going to find out what the real future is going to hold. So you have to let that come through as early as possible to know that they're able to step forward and hang on to you. And that high value mindset is going to be so much more attractive than lowering your standards. And I actually talk about this with my story of when I was a teenager. I had high value. I was pretty, I was a cheerleader, I was a great student. And it was my own lack of self-worth that the quality of men I was dating just declined until I met like the worst possible guy that after I chased him and found out he was married and found out he had a child and found out he lied about his age, still married him, and he just, I don't want to say ruined my life. My life's pretty good, but did his best to ruin my life. Tries to this day, currently, to ruin my life. So, and then it was as I raised my standards and demanded, not in a demanding way, but just in an assertive way, that my expectations are very high for how I'm going to be treated. And I just have that princess, I'm being treated like a princess in the back of my mind. Is he giving me that treatment or not? If the answer is no, I don't need to accept more dates. No conflict, there's no strife, there's no anger. It's just thank you for deselecting and thank you for letting me know that I'm still looking. So, yeah. Oh, I was mentioning about being able to let people go. So what I found by working with my family and seeing that what it's like when people are not willing to deselect out of the relationship. Ariba says that makes so much sense. Oh, I'm so glad, yay. I'm glad this is making sense because this will do so much to increase your experience dating and being in a relationship. Understanding this concept is so important. And what I was going to say about when you're not willing to end the relationship or walk away from it or allow them to deselect themselves, what I saw in doing business like that is that there's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of hard feelings. There's a lot of taking things personally and arguing, because if you can't walk away, you got to argue, right? You got to like can change people's minds